Let's recap some of the meetings. So one of the test cases of how we know that if you are crime-ridden, gang-infested, and of the third world, it's a choice. In the modern era with artificial intelligence, with cryptocurrency, with Bitcoin, technology, access to the internet, if your country is still living in the third world, it is by choice. Now, to get to the first world, you need some advantages, but living in the third world is a choice. You can enter the second world by simply making good choices. So much of life is choices. So much of life is decisions. The left wants you to believe that you are captive based on something that you inherit. You're captive based on your circumstances. We believe in free will, in agency. And the turnaround and the story of El Salvador and Bukele is a phenomenal story. El Salvador was the most dangerous place on the planet. MS-13 ran rampant. They held the entire country hostage. Bukele wins, declares a national emergency, has locked up tens of thousands of narco-drug criminals in MS-13, and El Salvador is now safer than the United States of America. A lot of money is flowing into El Salvador. Now, I don't want to make it seem as if it's something that it isn't. El Salvador is not like Ohio. El Salvador is not Georgia. But for decades, El Salvador was treated as unfixable. It's just the problem. Get used to it. They're a bunch of murderers. There's nothing we could do about it. They're poor and they're going to kill each other. Because what had to be done was outside of what Washington, D.C. could tolerate. Round up thousands of people and put them in jail. Not hard. But D.C., they can't possibly tolerate that. Well, what about the feelings of the terrorists? What about the feelings and the emotions of the people that are cutting off babies' heads, of which MS-13 would do in El Salvador? El Salvador led a populist revolution by Bukele, nationalized the police force, and locked them up in these maximum security prisons. So Bukele visited President Trump today in the White House. In fact, the meeting is largely ongoing. As the meeting is ongoing, they're talking about deportations and partnering, and you have to wonder, Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Mexico, why are you guys not as safe as El Salvador? Because they're choosing criminals over their citizens. It's very simple. If the West is to fall, it's because we choose to fall. If the West is to collapse, it's because collapse is a series of self-inflicted choices. It is a byproduct of agenic activity. We use the agency to fall, or we use the agency to rise. And what is it that makes us fall? It's because we are captive to ideology. The ideology of the MS-13's feelings matters more than the well-being of the kid that's trying to walk to school. Here's a little bit of a taste of Bukele's visit. J.D. Vance is speaking in this tape. Play cut 142.
For 40 years, we have lost manufacturing capacity. Workers have seen their wages stagnate. And some of the most critical things that we need, from the pharmaceuticals, the drugs that we give to our children, the antibiotics that we give to our kids, to the weapons that we actually need to fight a war, if God forbid we had to fight a war, we don't make enough of that stuff. And so President Trump ran explicitly on changing that. Yes, as the president mentioned, it caused a little bit of disruption in the market, but I actually think over the long term, workers are going to benefit, stocks are going to go up, American businesses are going to benefit as we reinvest and reindustrialize our country.
But according to Janet Yellen, that's not possible. They brought out the little elf, the little gremlin, to go tell you that it's not possible. Remember, she told you that abortion was a national security and economic concern? Listen to The Hobbit, play cut 125.
Perhaps it's to bring back American manufacturing, but I really think that's a pipe dream and not something that is likely to be accomplished. And we could even raise questions about whether or not, in a broad-based way, that's a desirable goal.
Why do we listen to, what has she ever accomplished in her life except being a technocrat for the Wall Street banks and the lords of easy money? It's a pipe dream. You know what? We like defying pipe dreams wrong. And to tie it all together, they said making El Salvador a safe country was a pipe dream. And now it is a fact. It is safer to walk the streets of El Salvador. It is safer to walk the streets of San Salvador than it is the streets of Chicago. It is a material fact to say that it is safer to bring your kids on the streets of San Salvador than in Washington, D.C. or New York. So we look forward to proving you wrong.